Greetings, everyone. DFG here. Hey, guys, I just want to get with you real quick just to keep you updated, keep you posted on the latest news. Currently, I'm in New Orleans, I'll start here and then I'll kind of give you some national news to go along, with this important information. As we already know, if you're not already taking the coronavirus serious, COVID 19, whatever, COVID 19, then that's probably again nothing else anyone can say to convince you that this is not a hoax. This is very serious. Here in this city, of course, if I mentioned on a previous video, they closed down schools. Now they're closing down a lot of the city services. The courts are closing. At least limited access to the courts, the civil courts, the criminal courts, all of the recreational places as far as where pools and in-house recreation facilities. They are also being closed to the public. The libraries are being closed here to the public. To the public, I'm sorry. French Quarter restaurants are still open, but already you can start to see the traffic start to fall back. And there was a breaking news kind of conference from the mayor today, just warning people again to not collect themselves, in crowds, and when they do so, they are raising the risk of infection, 100 fold. So, those are the kind of things that you think by now people would be trying to keep their distance, keep their space, but they're not. It's still that mentality that it's always somebody else until it's them. But that's where it is, and I don't see it changing anytime soon. There's the numbers here in New Orleans just to show you guys how serious this virus is starting to attack people. How the numbers are growing so fast. What 3 days ago there were approximately, I want to say, here in New Orleans there was like, I think it was 10 people. Yeah, 10 people who had been found with the disease, and I think something like, I'm sorry, yeah, 10 people that have been hospitalized, and like out of 220 people that were tested. I think those numbers are right, real close to right. Well, that number went from 3 days ago from 10 people having the virus now to 92 people having the virus in 3 days. It's the multiply is just that fast and that strong. And you're probably talking about thousands of people again in a city like New Orleans, cities like Chicago, San Francisco, New Orleans, New York, Philadelphia, Dallas, those Las Vegas, places like that. Obviously with Seattle, Los Angeles, we already know about that. These cities are going to get hit tremendously hard. And again, in places like New Orleans in particular, the people down here are very stubborn, very. You can tell them not to gather in crowds, they'll do it anyway. You can tell them not to drink something, they'll go drink it. Whatever you tell them to do, they really think that, doing the opposite, it's a act of independence, not realizing that there is a time, to do, what you're told. In Ecclesiastics, I want to say chapter 9 tells us there's a season for all things. That's what it says, in our book. But they don't listen, here especially. I mean, they're out there, in the quarters, still doing all the things they were warned not to do. So don't be surprised in the next few days, next couple of weeks, New Orleans is leading the national headlines with deaths from the coronavirus. Okay, don't be surprised at all. From what I can see, they're being warned, but they're not listening at all. And I mean, really not listening. I mean, some of these individuals, if I didn't know any better, I would think that they're having some type of that they were inflicted with some type of stunted mental development or growth, because you got a lot of people here that are adults, 25 and older, who think like 12 and 13, 14-year olds. That's just a fact, male and female, and across all ethnic groups, I might add. A very, very childish mentality, and just they just don't get it. They just don't get it. Not all of them, but there's a large portion of them. Petty, blinded, obsessive, and just flat out ignorant, for lack of a better word. Okay? But that's the latest on New Orleans and the seriousness of the situation here, and I can only see it getting worse. And I'm on the clock right now, so my days down here are numbered. But I have a home here, so I have to come down and take care of some business out here. And so once that's done, I'm sorry, or maybe before, uh, I'm raising my hand to get out of here. But that said, let me take you over to one other thing I want to share with you today. And this is around the international, not the international, but the domestic news. And this is more related to the Dow Jones. And this is important, guys, because a lot of people are going to be losing their jobs real soon. And because of a lack of resources out there, I'm talking about food and supplies. We talked about the tissue paper. We talked about, which is crazy, but we talked about water, sanitizers, just basic essentials are starting to run out because the people just hit these retail outlets like madmen and women and just grabbing stuff and buying up stuff. And a lot of these retailers cannot keep up with them. And then secondly, a lot of these retailers don't have in reserve the product to replace the product that's gone. So you're going to see empty shelves for a moment. And for people who are not prepared, they may have some serious issues on their hands in a very foreseeable future. Because again, with no income and no resources available to you, what are you going to do? If you haven't already, again, taken the right steps, what are you going to do? And they're talking, let me read this article because I can probably talk another 10 minutes, but, we want to keep these videos concise and right to the point, all right? And I could go on in that realm, and maybe I will in a later video today or tomorrow. But let me give you the Dow Jones. Let's go. Let's see. All right. The Dow Jones faces uncertain future after coronavirus forces global travel bans. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence announced over the weekend that the United States would be extending its European travel ban to both the UK and Ireland for 30 days. While this was casually thrown into his press conference, this is yet another terrible headline for the Dow. Okay? Or we should call it the Ponzi scheme, pyramid, the United Kingdom is, sorry guys, let me do this the right way. The United Kingdom is the sixth largest economy in the world, with London and New York the main interconnected hubs of the world's financial services. Ireland is also a significant destination as a tax haven for U.S. companies. A tax haven. That's part of why we're having a problem. Like, for example, we talk about people hoarding things. I wonder what those people who don't have drugs are going to do. Because you do know how drugs come from China. Almost 100% of all prescription drugs are coming from China, and China is not sending anything. If it's not already in the pipeline, it's not going to be in the pipeline anytime soon. Just, and a lot of you have sick parents, or some of you may be sick yourselves. I would talk to your physician and see if you can get your, some double prescriptions, or maybe you can get the double mileage. But it's going to be very difficult, around these controlled substances because, obviously there are laws in place where they don't do it. But you're gonna have a problem if you survive. You need certain drugs to survive, and you don't have it available to you. That's all I'll say about that. Something you need to be thinking about. I'll continue to read. Okay. It says, even before those countries were added, the Eurozone is the second largest economic area in the world, and the financial impact is going to be huge. This, in addition to the China travel ban that Trump imposed earlier on in the coronavirus timeline. Around the world, Saudi Arabia is grounding airlines, while Norway is closing all airports and seaports. These are just a handful of a multitude of examples globally. The Dow is at risk after a series of travel bans threatened to reignite the stock market crash. In 2018, global tourism added $8.8 trillion to the global economy and 319 million jobs. Tourism is now all but dried up, and the trickle-down effects on the economy and thus the stock market are already becoming clear. So think about that. 319 million people jobs are at risk. Whew. Major urban centers in the United States are seeing a collapse in restaurant demand already, And this was before the travel ban with Europe was implemented Friday evening. In New York City, table bookings were down an astonishing 63%. Wow. Restaurant demand in the U.S. was catering even before Trump's travel ban. I just said that. This is in addition to New York Governor Cuomo closing Broadway and the shuttering of major sporting events around the country to stem the spread of COVID-19 or COVID-19. Apple Store's closures another problem for the Dow. An additional problem for the Dow Jones that emerged on Friday was its most heavily weighted stock. Apple is facing the closing of all of its stores globally outside of China, as the tech giant made the following announcement. As the rates of the new infections continue to grow in other places, we're taking additional steps to protect our team members and customers. We will be closing all of our retail store outlets of Greater China, outside of Greater China, until March 27. Wow, pretty serious. But good for Apple. I'll give them credit for putting their people first. You know, that's not what most other organizations out here, that's not what they say. I won't get into that either, again, because of time restraints. Another word for the stock market is Trump's claim that Google was making a national scale website to help coordinate coronavirus testing. It turned out to be overly optimistic. All right, weekend spreads are suggesting that the stock market crash looks set to resume next week. In other words, starting tonight. Though this is not always a reliable indicator of opening price for the Dow futures on Sunday, lately they have been on spot. Aside from the travel bans, there was terrible news out of Italy as another 3,500 coronavirus cases and 1,400 more deaths were announced. Wow. In the United States, cases are now approaching 2,500. Remember the 15 that Trump was talking about a couple of weeks ago? The Dow might have rallied Friday, but it still appears that investors could be underestimating the impact of what is essentially deglobalization around the world. Despite this, economists at J.P. Morgan still anticipate a quick recovery when the storm passes. Yeah, right. While this is good news for the Dow Jones longer term, if true, and that's a big if true, it does not rule out another leg down in 2020's astonishing stock market crash. All right? So again, that's your information. That's the latest information I have to share with you. And again, this is what I would say to you guys. Get your money out of the bank. The Fed is about to go to negative interest rates. And most of you guys out there already know what that means. But for the few who might say, well, okay, DFG, what is a negative interest rate? Well, a negative interest rate is when the bank actually charges you to keep your money in their bank. Obviously, interest rate or positive rates when you make money by having your money in their banks. Interest on your money. Well, they're at 0 to 0.25 now. That just was announced a little bit earlier today. Pretty soon it's going to go to negative. So why would I put my money in a bank and pay that bank to have my money in the bank? So they're taking my money. When I put my money there, they're going to be siphoning off of my money. Boy, talking about the rich getting richer and the rich and the crooks becoming crooked, or even more crooked. So anyway, if you have resources that you may only want to consider getting them out of the stock market, getting them out of the banks, finding somewhere else to put your money so that if you need that money for bartering or for immediate, expensive, you don't get caught up, in things that may be nationally or domestically or internationally where you don't have access to your cash. And that can happen, guys. It's happened already. They've already did tests on that. ATM machines over the weekends not working. They were doing this over the last year and a half, testing it, just like Jed Helm, with this martial law. You know what I'm saying? And testing and seeing how things work. I still say those detention centers were put in place to test how they're going to put many of you all, or maybe the people maybe not you, I don't know, in those detention centers and how they're going to serve, but more importantly, how they're going to keep you there or keep you in your homes if they start quarantining these cities by pulling everybody out of school, telling everybody to stay home, and then overnight you wake up and the National Guard is running to your streets making an announcement: do not come out unless you have proper, documentation and authorization. That's prophetic. I hope you heard it. Love you guys. DFG. Talk to you later.